Hello Society members and viewers from around the world. My name is Charles Knippen. I am the president of the National Society of Leadership and Success, and today I'm happy to be hosting another Thought Leader series with you. In our Thought Leader series, we like to give our viewers the opportunity to hear the stories, the background, the insights from leaders from around the world. And today we are sitting with Mayor Svante Myrick of Ithaca, New York. At the age of 24, Svante became the youngest mayor in the state of New York history. And today we're going to be hearing his story and hearing his insights. Mayor Myrick, thank you for being with us here today.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure.
Great. Every Thought Leader series, we want to start out with getting your story. In many interviews, they'll ask you the pointed questions and they'll forget about the history. And I want to start going back before your second re-election, before your first election, before your time at Cornell, before your nearly perfect SAT score. Yeah. I want to go back all the way to your youth. And I want to ask you, what's the path that got you to where you are today?
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I appreciate, too, you mentioning my SAT scores. A point of great frustration is that they don't tell you what question you got wrong. And I've written many letters and they never let me know. I appreciate that question because where I came from is important to me, and I think has determined where I am now. You know, I was born in 1987, in a time in this country when the drug epidemic was at its peak, particularly crack, particularly for Black Americans in inner cities. And for a decade, our country had been ignoring the problem. The answer had been to ratchet up penalties, to arrest more people, but not to get them the treatment they needed. And my father was an addict. I mean, he was a victim of this epidemic, and that matters for who I became in so many ways. I mean, what it meant was that my mother would have to raise the four of us alone, you know. The man that she met and loved and married became somebody else, and that's hard. It's a hard thing. So we were very poor, you know. I'd spent actually the first 6 months of my life in a homeless shelter. And for the first 8 years, we were in and out of homelessness. We were never quite housing secure. But she worked very hard. I watched her work 2 or 3 minimum wage jobs. And, you know, I watched my grandparents sacrifice quite a lot. They were retired school teachers, and they had a pension, and they didn't have a lot, but they had enough to feed us when we were hungry and to make sure we had new sneakers so that we could go to school in the beginning of the year. And I got so much support from that school, from public school teachers and a system that made sure that we were fed, because they knew that we couldn't focus on our algebra homework if we were too worried about the rumble in our stomachs. I mean, all of that informed not just the person that I'd become, but the policies that I believed in. So from a very young age, I was interested in government, and I thought that journalism, the people who covered politics, was going to be the closest I could ever get to this thing that meant so much to me. So I came to Cornell to study communication. I tried writing for the Cornell Daily Sun. That didn't really work for them or for me. Turned out I was too opinionated to sit at a meeting and not say my opinion. I was also too poor a writer to cut it. But in my involvement downtown, as I got more engaged in the city, I met people who encouraged me to run in my junior year. When I was 20 years old, I ran for the city council. I was elected and sworn in, and my true education began. I mean, the battles in that room, the coded language, the procedure, the learning what it took outside of the classroom to actually get something done. Learning that the world is not a meritocracy like school, that you can't just hand in a paper that has in all the facts and get an A+, that you have to actually compromise, that you have to inspire, that you have to motivate, sometimes that you have to beat the opposition. Those 4 years in that chamber taught me quite a lot. So I ran for mayor when I was 24. I had a 3-way primary and then a 4-way general election. It's one of the most difficult things I ever did, but I knocked on every door in the city 2.5 times. We had volunteers who knocked on every door in the city 14 times. Wow. And I was able to win 18 out of 18 elections.